After years of silence, my parents returned like nothing happened, smiling the moment they heard about the millions my aunt left me. But when the lawyer revealed the adoption papers, their grins vanished. They didn't just lose the money, they lost control over me forever. I was sitting at my desk staring at a bank statement that said I was worth millions when the doorbell rang and my past walked back into my life. My name's Abigail. I'm 28. And just a few weeks ago, my Aunt Catherine, the woman who raised me, left me everything she'd built. Her Tudor-style estate in Boston's Beacon Hill, her sustainable furniture empire, and a fortune I still can't wrap my head around. I was still reeling from her funeral, my heart heavy with grief, when my parents, people I hadn't seen since they ditched me at 13, strolled into the lawyer's office like they'd just been out for brunch. My mom's smile was too bright, like she was auditioning for a role she'd forgotten the lines to. "Abigail, sweetheart," she said, "we're your family." My dad nodded, his eyes darting to the lawyer's folder like a hawk spotting prey. That's when Theodore, Aunt Catherine's attorney, walked in and their faces froze like they'd seen a ghost. His presence changed the entire energy in that mahogany-paneled office, and I knew something was about to shift in a way none of us expected. Let me take you back to where it all started. Growing up, life felt like a cozy Polaroid, fuzzy around the edges, but warm in the center. We lived in a small apartment in a working-class Boston neighborhood, the kind with cracked sidewalks and corner stores that sold penny candy. My dad was a car salesman, always smoothing his tie before heading to the lot, promising me he'd bring home a Mustang one day. My mom taught 4th grade, her laughter filling our tiny kitchen as she graded papers with a mug of Earl Grey tea. We weren't rich, but we had rituals that made us feel like we were. Friday pizza nights with a rented DVD, summer picnics by the Charles River, and Christmas mornings where we'd burn waffles and laugh about it. I was their shadow, trailing them with a kid's blind trust that they'd always be there. But even back then, there were cracks I was too young to name. My dad started staying out late, coming home with eyes red from more than just long hours. I'd hear my mom's voice through the bedroom door, sharp and pleading, asking why the bank account was always empty. She started pulling away, too. Her laugh fading, her eyes distant, like she was looking at a life that wasn't hers. I was 13 when they vanished. One chilly fall morning, I woke up to an apartment too quiet, their bedroom stripped bare, except for a note in my mom's loopy handwriting. "Abigail, we can't do this anymore. Your Aunt Catherine will take care of you. We're sorry." 16 words that shattered my world. I sat on the couch clutching that note, waiting for a phone call that never came, while the life I'd known slipped away like sand through my fingers. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would teach me what family really means. The days after my parents left felt like living in a house with no walls. I kept their note under my pillow, rereading it like it might explain why I wasn't enough to keep them. The landlord banged on the door, his voice gruff about unpaid rent, and I lied, saying they'd be back soon, terrified he'd call someone to take me away. By the 3rd day, hunger gnawed at my stomach. Cereal was all I had left, and fear finally won. I told my school counselor, who brought in a social worker named Mrs. Fitzgerald. Her soft voice and steady hands felt like the first safe thing in days. She tracked down Aunt Catherine, my dad's older sister who lived across the state in a world I couldn't imagine. When Catherine arrived, she was a force. Tall, silver hair pinned in an elegant twist, her charcoal coat pristine against our peeling apartment walls. "Pack what matters," she said, her tone clipped but not cruel. I stuffed a duffel with clothes, my dog-eared copy of and of Green Gables, and a photo of me and my parents at the county fair. Their smiles frozen in a moment I couldn't trust anymore. The drive to her home was silent, the hum of her sleek Mercedes the only sound as Boston's skyline faded behind us. I kept stealing glances at her, wondering if she even wanted me or if I was just a duty she couldn't refuse. Catherine's house was a Tudor masterpiece, all exposed beams and leaded glass windows, perched on a quiet street in Beacon Hill. My bedroom had a view of the common, the trees swaying like they were mocking my chaos. Catherine laid out rules like a general briefing troops. Breakfast at 7, no shoes indoors, homework at the desk, not the bed. I rebelled at first, leaving dishes in the sink or skipping the violin lessons she insisted I take, half hoping she'd send me away before I could get attached. But she never wavered. When I overslept, she closed the kitchen without a word. When I failed a geometry quiz, she sat me down with a tutor, her eyes saying she believed I could do better even when I didn't. Slowly, I started to see her not as a stranger, but as a lifeline. One night, I found her in the garden clipping hydrangeas in the moonlight. "You're tougher than you think, Abigail," she said, handing me a bloom. It was the first time I felt she saw me, not just the kid she had to fix. But even as I settled into her world, the ache for my parents lingered. I'd lie awake, imagining them walking through the door, apologizing, explaining it was all a mistake. That hope kept me tethered to a past that hurt more every time I reached for it. What I didn't know then was that Catherine had her own plans that would protect me in ways I couldn't imagine. Plans that involved lawyers, investigators, and secrets she'd kept locked away until the moment they'd matter most. Living with Catherine was like learning a new language, structured, precise, but rich once you understood it. She'd built her furniture company, Evergreen Home Collections, from a single storefront into a regional empire, and she expected me to match her drive. At 15, she enrolled me in Thornton Academy, a private school where kids drove BMWs nicer than my old apartment. I felt like an imposter, my thrift store backpack clashing with their designer labels. I struggled with calculus and literature, staying up past midnight to catch up, my desk lamp burning as I fought to prove I belonged. Catherine didn't coddle me. "You're not here to blend in," she'd say. "You're here to stand out." Her words were tough, but they lit a fire in me. By high school graduation, I'd clawed my way to the honor roll, earning a scholarship to Boston University. Catherine pushed me toward business, saying it would give me options my parents never had. We fought when I wanted to study art instead. She called it a hobby, not a career. But she shared a story that stopped me cold. "Your dad could have been anything," she said one night, her voice softer than usual. "He had a mind for numbers, but no one gave him a path. He turned to poker instead. I won't let you repeat that." For the first time, I saw her not just as my guardian, but as someone fighting to rewrite my family story. College was where I found my stride. I majored in business, but minored in design, blending Catherine's pragmatism with my creativity. Summers, I interned at Evergreen Home, learning how to charm vendors and spot market trends. Catherine started trusting me with real responsibility, redesigning showroom displays, pitching marketing campaigns. Our Sunday calls became less about rules and more about ideas, her dry laugh sneaking through when I'd pitch something bold. When I graduated, she offered me a job as marketing director. "You've earned it," she said, her handshake firm, but her eyes warm. For the first time, I felt like her equal. Then 2 years ago, Catherine got sick. Pancreatic cancer, the doctor said, and it moved fast. I watched her fight it with the same grit she'd always had, working until she couldn't. I took over, scheduling her treatments, cooking meals she barely touched, reading contracts aloud when her eyes grew too tired. One night, as I tucked a blanket around her, she grabbed my hand. "You're my legacy, Abigail," she whispered. "Don't let anyone take that from you." She died a few months later, and the house felt like a museum of her absence, every creak of the floorboards a reminder she was gone. I had no idea that her death would be just the beginning of a battle I never saw coming. Because 3 weeks later, when I walked into Theodore's office for the will reading, my parents were there waiting. And the look in their eyes when they heard about the millions? That's when I realized they hadn't come for me. They'd come for the money. 3 weeks after Catherine's funeral, I got a letter from Theodore, her attorney, summoning me to his downtown Boston office for the will reading. I expected a quiet meeting, maybe with a few of Catherine's employees. Instead, I walked into a room that sucked the air out of me. My parents stood there, older but unmistakable. My dad's frame heavier, his hair grey, my mom's face sharper, her smile forced. "Abigail," my dad said, his voice too warm. "You've grown into such a woman." My mom reached for a hug I couldn't return, her perfume choking me with memories I'd buried. Theodore started reading the will. "Catherine left me everything. The house, the business, millions in assets." My parents' eyes lit up and I felt a chill crawl down my spine. "This is a lot for someone your age," my mom said, her hand on mine like we were close. "As your parents, we can guide you." My dad chimed in, casual but calculated. "Legally, we are still your guardians since Catherine only had temporary custody." My stomach dropped. They hadn't come for me. They'd come for the money. Before I could speak, Theodore cut in. "There's a misunderstanding here," he said, his voice steady as he opened a file. Catherine adopted Abigail when she was 16. She's been her legal daughter for over a decade. He slid adoption papers across the desk and my world tilted. Catherine had never told me. She'd made me her daughter, truly and legally, and I'd never known. My parents' faces crumbled, but my dad recovered fast. We never agreed to that, he snapped. Those papers are fake. Theodore didn't flinch. He pulled out another file. Photos, reports, recordings. Catherine hired investigators to track you after you left Abigail. You were in Atlantic City, gambling, working odd jobs. You signed away your rights for $15,000 from a man named Lawrence Brennan. My mom gasped, but my dad's jaw clenched. Theodore handed me a letter in Catherine's handwriting. I read it aloud, my voice shaking but growing stronger with every word. My dearest Abigail, if you're reading this, your parents have come for your inheritance. They tried to extort me years ago, $1,500 to not fight for you. More later for their debts. I protected you then, and I'm protecting you now. The room was silent except for my mom's quiet sobs. You've been brainwashed, my dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. I stood, clutching the letter. Catherine was my mother, I said. She showed up when you didn't. You don't get to walk back in now. Theodore added, any legal challenge will trigger a clause transferring the estate to a charity for abandoned children. You'd get nothing. Their attorney, Leonard, whispered urgently to my dad, who stormed out, my mom trailing behind, pleading for me to reconsider. But I was done. Done being the girl they left behind. Done pretending they deserved a second chance they'd never earned. That night, they came to my house. And that's when things got really ugly. That night, they showed up at my house, banging on the door like creditors demanding payment. I let them in, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to end this once and for all. We're your family, my mom cried, her eyes scanning the mahogany staircase, the crystal chandelier, calculating every dollar. My dad tried a softer approach, his voice dripping with false remorse. We were sick, Abigail. Depression, addiction. We thought Catherine would give you a better life. I cut them off. You knew where I was for 15 years. You could have called, visited, checked in. But you never reached out. Now you're here because of a will. I pointed to a camera in the corner, one of several Catherine had installed throughout the house. Catherine recorded every call you made to her, every demand for money. Did you think she'd leave me defenseless? My dad's face twisted with rage. She stole you from us, he shouted. That money was our family's, too. Your grandfather started the business we built. That was a lie. Catherine had started Evergreen Home from scratch. From a single store in Cambridge, she'd opened with a small business loan and sheer determination. My grandfather had been a postal worker who died when my dad was 12. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. Catherine built this. You built nothing but excuses. She created a legacy while you gambled away every opportunity you ever had. A patrol car's lights flashed outside. Theodore had arranged for police presence, anticipating this exact scenario. Leave, I said, or the police will make you. They left, but not quietly. My dad kicked over Planter on the porch. My mom's last words, you'll regret this, Abigail, hung in the air like a bad dream. The weeks after that confrontation were a blur of grief and clarity. I sat in Catherine's study, now mine, surrounded by her files and the weight of her love. In a locked drawer, I found a box with my old report cards, a photo of me at Thornton's graduation, and a note in her sharp script. Abigail, I love you not because I had to, but because you're you. I adopted you to make you mine, not to take you from anyone. Be strong. Mom. That word, Mom, broke me open. I cried for the mother I'd lost, not the ones who'd left. I filed a restraining order, and Theodore ensured it stuck. My parents tried one last time, sending a letter to a local newspaper with lies about Catherine, but the editor, her old friend, shut it down immediately. They slunk back to Atlantic City, their threats as empty as their promises had always been. But I wasn't just going to move on. I was going to build something that would ensure no child ever felt as abandoned as I had. Catherine had given me more than money. She'd given me purpose. And I was going to honor that in a way that would make her proud. I started reshaping the house to feel like mine, painting the walls soft cream, swapping heavy curtains for sheer linen ones that let in light. But I kept Catherine's garden untouched, her hydrangeas blooming like she was still there, clipping them in the moonlight. Evergreen Home Collections grew under my lead. I launched an e-commerce platform, something Catherine had resisted, and opened a new location in Providence. The staff saw her in me, her focus, her fairness, and it felt like carrying her forward, not just inheriting what she built. But the real legacy was the Catherine Monroe Foundation. I poured a significant portion of the inheritance into it, creating a haven for kids like me, abandoned, adrift, needing someone to show up. We offer full scholarships to private schools, therapy services, and mentorship programs, helping them build lives not defined by who left them. The Foundation's first scholarship recipient was a girl named Natalie, 14, whose single mother had dropped her at a fire station 2 years earlier. When I met her at our Foundation's headquarters in Cambridge, I saw myself in her guarded eyes, her defensive posture. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, suspicious of kindness she'd learned not to trust. "Because someone did it for me," I said simply. "And because you deserve someone in your corner." Over coffee and croissants, I told her my story. Not the sanitized version, but the real one, the note, the abandonment, the years of wondering if I'd been the problem. Her shoulders slowly relaxed, and by the end of our conversation, she was crying, not from sadness, but from relief. "You get it," she whispered. "You actually get it." Mrs. Geneva, Catherine's housekeeper of 30 years, became a quiet constant in my life. She shared stories over tea about Catherine's early days, how she'd stayed up late learning accounting to save her first store, how she'd panicked before I arrived but read parenting books anyway. "She never thought she'd be good at it," Mrs. Geneva said one afternoon. "But the moment she saw you, something clicked. You became her whole world." Theodore, who turned out to be my godfather, a fact Catherine had kept from me, started joining me for Sunday dinners. His advice was sharp but kind, just like Catherine's. He helped me navigate the business world, introduced me to investors, and became the father figure I'd never had. Therapy with Dr. Callahan helped me untangle the knot of my parents' return. "You don't need their apology to move on," she said during one session. "You've built a life bigger than their mistakes." A letter from my mom arrived a few months ago. No demands this time, just regret written in that same loopy handwriting I remembered from childhood. It's in my desk drawer, unopened but not thrown away. Maybe one day I'll read it, but not yet. For now, I'm learning to love the life Catherine gave me, the one I'm building on the foundation she laid. But there was one more thing I needed to do to truly honor her memory. Last weekend, I visited Catherine's grave at Mount Auburn Cemetery, laying dahlias on the stone where Mother is carved beneath her name. I told her about the foundation, the business, the person I'm becoming. "You showed me what family means," I whispered, my fingers tracing the letters of her name. "Not blood, not obligation, but choice. You chose me when no one else would." The foundation has grown beyond anything I imagined. We've helped 47 kids in the past year alone, providing scholarships, housing assistance, and therapy. Next month, we are opening a residential facility in Newton, a safe house for teenagers in crisis, with counselors, tutors, and a garden just like Catherine's. I named it Monroe House. Natalie, our first scholarship recipient, is thriving at Thornton Academy now, the same school I attended. She calls me every Sunday, just like I used to call Catherine, and we talk about everything from calculus homework to college dreams. Last week, she told me she wants to be a social worker. "I want to help kids like us," she said, her voice strong and sure. That's when I knew Catherine's legacy wasn't just about money or businesses. It was about creating a ripple effect of care, of showing up, of being the person who stays. Evergreen Home Collections just signed a major contract with a national retailer. The business Catherine built in Cambridge storefronts is now a brand recognized across New England. Every quarter, 20% of our profits go directly to the foundation. Theodore helped me establish a trust that ensures the foundation will continue long after I'm gone, supporting abandoned children for generations. Catherine would have appreciated the irony. The money my parents wanted so desperately is now helping kids whose parents didn't want them. I haven't heard from my parents in 6 months. Sometimes I wonder if they think about me, if they regret their choices, if they understand what they lost. But mostly, I don't think about them at all. They're characters in a story I've moved beyond, shadows that no longer reach me. Instead, I think about the 15-year-old girl who stood in Theodore's office, learning she was loved enough to be chosen. I think about Catherine staying up late, researching adoption laws, hiring lawyers, making sure I could never be taken from her. I think about how she taught me that family isn't about who shares your blood, it's about who shows up in the moonlight to clip hydrangeas and tell you you're tougher than you think. Last night, I hosted a gala for the foundation. 200 guests filled the grand ballroom at the Fairmont, raising over $1 million. As I stood at the podium, looking out at faces, some famous, some familiar, all there to support kids who needed what I'd needed, I felt Catherine's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a foundation beneath my feet, solid and unshakable. To the ones who stay, I said, raising my glass. To the families we choose, and the legacies we build from love, not blood. The room erupted in applause, and I smiled. Because I'd finally understood what Catherine had been trying to teach me all along, that being abandoned wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning.